Hi, everyone. It's Andrea Strang here at Gallery 222. I am in Patrick Lee's beautiful room here at the gallery. The show is up until May 29th. It comes quick. So please get out to see this work. It's amazing. There's shots of the room we're sharing with you now. It really is spectacular. So the reason why we're here is to talk to Patrick Lee. Most of you, I'm sure, already know him. He's an accomplished plein air artist. I first came across his work actually here, Trust the Process exhibit that was curated by Randall Graham, had his work, blown away then. Then I re-saw his work at the Wayne Plein Air Festival, which he won the award, Best Urban Scene Award. How fabulous. And that's right down the road. And then just recently, he won the Best in Show Award at Olmsted Plein Air. So for that piece. So we are really excited to show his work at Gallery 222. So let's welcome Patrick.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, everybody.
I'm so glad you're out in Pittsburgh, if anyone's wondering where he is. His homestead is Pittsburgh. So I'm so pleased that you were able to get your work here in Malvern.
Oh yeah, I'm happy. Thanks for showing it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So let's talk. You call yourself like an abstract realism, and to tell you the truth, it was the first time I heard that abstract realism.
Yeah.
And tell me about your journey. Did you start out more realistic? Did you start out more abstract? Like, how did you get to this beautiful work?
Yeah, and I don't know if that term abstract realism is a real thing. It's just something that seemed right. But when I studied in school, I was really more abstract. I mean, I loved figure drawing. That was the first time I really got to draw the model from life. And I just really, when it came to painting, I was really, and actually a lot of the drawings too, I was really more into the abstract quality, the design quality of things. But then I'd say about, I don't know, I'd say probably like in the middle of the 2000s, like in 2004, 2005, something like that, I really started studying drawing more and painting more. And I actually had done some plein air work. I had one teacher in college who took us out to paint a few times, and that was it. For years, I hadn't done anything. And then I started going out again and painting again. And I'm doing the studio there. Yeah, but that's, and I started to get more involved with it, and I wanted to like render things the way they looked, you know. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important thing to do, you know. And the thing about plein air work is that you have to do everything at once. You have to get the drawing, the color, the design. Everything has to kind of happen quickly at one time. I mean, you can go out to the same location more than once, but for me, I like to get stuff. I was doing little panels, you know, 8x10s or whatever, and I wanted to get the whole thing at one time. And then slowly those got bigger, more of a challenge to, you know, use bigger brushes, use more paint, but to still have that element of, you know, getting the drawing down, getting the color down, the concept, the design. And now I'm moving back more towards that abstraction. That's
so cool.
But some elements that you can see and make sense of, you know. It's intriguing to me. I just like it. It's some of the things I like about artwork is looking at that and seeing how things emphasize the flatness of the surface, or, you know, emphasize design. And so, yeah.
Well, it's funny, opening night, one of your collectors came in and he loved everything in the room, obviously, but he said he was looking for something more messier. And I was like, there was one piece that I could not fit in the show, and there it is. And it's in the cottage. And he's like, yes. So it's so funny that that's how he described it, messier. And I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And I love that piece.
Yeah. And I often tell people, thank you. I tell people one of the ways I like to work, and I think when I get some of the work that I like the most, it's when I make a big mess and then clean up certain areas. Like in that painting, that painting's actually done over another painting, which is something I like to do, because then there's kind of a, when you start to paint other things over it, it becomes kind of messy and disjointed. But then as I went in, I started to paint the, and emphasize the paint tubes and the brush tank and all that. I painted that brush tank a lot of time, the coffee cup and all that stuff in the brushes. And when I just, and you can see when you look at it in person, even when you get up close, it's really not a lot of detail. They're just some blobs of paint kind of put in the right place. But when you look at it, it looks like something,
Right.
But that whole area to the right and down below, it's kind of just, you can still see some of the old painting. And then just where I scrubbed in different color. That's what I like, is to make a mess and then clean it up. It's more freeing. It's less careful. And you don't, I'm not so focused on overworking it. You kind of lose the ability to overwork it when it's just already a big mess and I'm just putting a few pieces in place,
That's well, it works because I know exactly what it is, but it was like, wow. And he loved it. So that's kind of cool. So you're obviously an accomplished plein air artist, but you also do studio work. So is your approach differently? Can you explain what's in your mind when when you create outside and then when you create in the studio?
No, I would say it's about the same. In fact, that's the thing I think ties everything together. If you look at the stuff I do, it might seem like there's a lot of, and that video, there's a pretty traditional thing. I wanted to paint out. It was really cold that day too. I don't know if you can't really tell, but it was freezing. It killed my battery really fast. But there I'm not doing, there I'm starting on a fresh canvas. So I'm kind of just laying out where I want to put things. But even on top of that, then I start to slap the paint on.
Oh my
and
gosh.
make a bit of a mess and scrape stuff out and lay stuff on. But that's what I think is what I hope is the kind of continuous thing, is the process and not so much the subject matter. Like, to me, all the paintings that are there at the gallery and all the paintings I've done in the past few years are kind of the same. To me, in my mind, they're the same, even though they might look different. They're the same in the way they started.
Wow.
And in the way I either chose to or didn't choose to finish them. Like in some cases I really finish them and refine certain areas. In other cases, I kind of leave most of it go, like messy, like you said, and then just refine a little bit of it. And then there are sometimes with smaller things, like some of the acrylic paintings I do, where I don't really refine anything that much. I leave it kind of messy and just like leave very simple marks and not try to really draw so much. Using a lot of line, but trying to put little shapes next to each other, so. In my mind, I think of both of those processes as the same, but sometimes out in the open in plein air, it's more fun because it's going to change, and your temptation to kind of say, well, I have time to reference that and go back. It changes. If there is something detailed, sometimes in a plein air, I'll draw a little sketch and work like people or something, and I'll work from that. But overall, it's like you have to get everything done. And so you necessarily end up leaving stuff out. You have to edit really quickly and figure out what the painting's about. And I think that's a good thing about plein air. You got to figure out, okay, what do I want to achieve here? What do I like about this? Why do I want to paint this scene I'm looking at or whatever? It makes you really think about that and really whittle it down to a simple,
Well, I was an art student. I think the hardest thing for someone learning to paint is, when do you know the painting is done? And, do you have any advice in that area? Because like you're saying, you don't want to overwork it. And a lot of times, there's different degrees of how you finish. Yeah,
I would say, and I'll say off the bat, I don't get this right. Maybe every once in a while I'll get it where I want it and I'll get it right, and I don't overwork it and ruin it, but most of the time I am worried I'm going to ruin it. But I guess one of the things that I look for is I have this concept of what I want to get out of the painting. So it'll be about some design element or some combination of colors or something about the shapes. I'll pick something like that and make the painting about that concept rather than about the subject matter. So one of the paintings you have there that I think was the rooftops painting. And I remember when I posted that, I said it was a painting about verticals, and really it is. And it's a painting about a lot of kind of lattice work and filigree kind of shapes, like across the top of that, all of the little angles and things like that. And that's where you can really see in that painting all the detail really is. When you look at the rest of it, it's just kind of big, broad shapes. I didn't put any detail. There are a lot of windows on the building on the right that I didn't put in. I just really finished the one. But when you stand back and look at the whole thing, I got to a point where I was like, okay, that has the overall effect of a busy kind of city feel. But what I was concerned with wasn't so much of defining a certain space as getting a certain design element of all these little verticals and horizontals and obliques, and just having them all intertwining and interacting and weaving together. That was what I really was thinking about as I was painting. I was thinking, like, I might pick a word like, this is complex, this is tangled, this is, I'll be thinking about stuff like that, rather than this is a building that's here and it looks like this. So once I had kind of had that, what I thought was there, I stood back and looked at it and I said, okay, I think that's it. It hit me. I was like, yes, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. There's always a temptation. Oh, I could put those windows in and there's a door and put people walking. But that goes beyond the idea. Once I got the idea, once I had that. So I think the more you refine, and I'm always struggling to make myself stay there, is once you refine the concept down to like one or two words or an idea that you can, people talk about your elevator speech. Once you can kind of put your concept into like one or two words, that's how you know the painting's done.
Right.
And there have been many times where I've started the painting and then like scraped off and said that, it was the scope of it was too big, and I had to like refine down even more to like, if I'm gonna paint this and I need to put that right make it the big thing on the painting, make that the big idea. And so I think, that's one of the most important things to know, whether you're done with the painting or not, that you achieve that conception you had,
What I loved about that painting, Rooftops, it gives you a feeling of depth and almost height. If you're afraid of heights, don't look at that painting too long. Because it gives you this feeling of being, up high. Where were you standing? Were you out of
I had to stand on the 40th Street Bridge here in Pittsburgh. Okay. It's right. It's actually really close to where my studio. It's probably about 5 minutes from my studio, but I had to park my car and like get up on the bridge. It was a really windy day. And actually where I took that from, I couldn't really stand there. It's one of those kind of things where you see it, but you can't really set up there. And one of the things I did with this is like the distant buildings in that. One of the things I try to avoid is kind of like that idea of a perspective punching a hole through the canvas, like it disappears. And so a lot of times what I'll do is something that I, basically stole from Cezanne. You see Cezanne do this, like he takes the distant buildings and like brings them really far forward. Yeah. So that the difference between the front buildings and the distant buildings are not so different in size. And it's, and a lot of times I'll downplay or turn or tilt the angle up of the frontal part of the closer buildings to make it into more of a, think about it more two-dimensionally than that this is a street that's going back and disappearing into space. Like sometimes I think that's too increased. And so I played with some of that. A lot of the space in there, if you saw it in real life, is really more stretched out. I really compressed it together from left to right and from front to back. So I can make this kind of scenario, this environment where I could get all those little, like I said, stick-like, verticals, off verticals, horizontals, angles, things like that, and play with all that stuff, the roof lines, the poles, the shadows, even, I wanted to get all that in, the roof lines.
Well, it's a magnificent piece. And now that I know you're on a bridge, I don't know if I can look at it.
Yeah, it's a really cool view. Yeah.
And another great view is Rhythm of the City. That's a great size too. And it's behind me, if anyone can see, but tell us about that. That's kind of like the same feeling, although I feel like I'm on good ground. Do you know?
Yeah. And this is really this is a place in Pittsburgh called Lawrenceville. And so it's right across the river from me. And, this is from the same bridge. And really from where I was here, I had to walk up more toward the middle where I really couldn't kind of stand there, especially working at this scale. There's just no way. but to do it from life. But this is one of those paintings I had really wanted to do for years and years. You know, every time we crossed that bridge, and my wife would like kind of roll her eyes after a while. She's like, "Yeah, you've been saying that for years." Like, guys, like that'd be a good painting. There's scenes like this in Pittsburgh where there just looks like the houses are just stacked on top of each other, like there's no room, you know.
Right.
And so in doing this, I really had to pick out the bigger shapes and just get a few. So get a few of the roof lines, a few of the eave ends, and all that, so you could still tell what it was. If you were to take a photo of this and really just blow it up, it would be almost unrecognizable as houses. So I had to really pick and choose and decide, and it's really different from what it actually looks like. But but I thought, if I get enough of those, you know, if you see enough of these kind of like different kinds of triangles and some verticals and just off verticals, it's going to have that feeling of, you know, there's this rhythmic quality of things moving up and down, of things tilting, of things. And so I wanted there to be this sense of movement. That's why a lot of it on there too is like, it doesn't have as much to do with color or filling in color as it does to do with shapes, things overlapping each other. Somebody said, how long did it take to paint? I think this, I think this painting took, I have some progress shots to this, I think still. I got like the basic lower buildings and everything kind of done the first day. And I think it took about like maybe 2 or 3 whole sessions, like maybe 8 or 9 hours to do it.
Wow.
And it actually
something like that detailed, I think I would lose my mind on where am I now and doing this. And so that it's amazing.
And I'm exactly the same way, Andrea. And that's why one of the things I really had to force myself to do was to not wander. I would be starting on like the rooftops, like the main rooftops and those dormers down in the right-hand side. And then I would start to find myself moving over to the other dormers and then over in the back. And I was like, hold on, wait. And so I would pick like one gable end, like there's up in the middle, kind of center middle of it. There's like a defined triangle of a gable. And so I'd start there and just work out on every side. And okay, there's a shape there, there's a roof line here, there's a roof line here. And then I'd be like, I'm going to leave those 2 out and put this one in. And so I really wanted to get the maximum feeling of busyness and movement and sound and air and everything, and the car horns beeping in. But I also wanted to make sure it was, like you said, not driving you insane and like sitting there with a microscope, you know, or a magnifying glass and painting.
And where was I? Was this? Was that?
Yeah. And it was really fun to do because of that as it came together. Like that row of kind of roofs that comes out from the middle, those just the flat sides of the roof.
Yes.
When I saw those, I was like, there's no reason to put paint on there at all because it already has the value. And because of the surrounding colors of being mostly like a grayish blue, they seem kind of to have some warmth to them. And I put a little bit of color on a couple of them so that I guess the mindset is for me that if there's something that's a little bit warm, that's light in value, everything that's light in value is going to kind of be associated with that. And everything that's dark in value are going to be cooler and be kind of grouped together in the viewer's eye, in the mind. So,
Well, here's a question. You're kind of on the topic now. What are your thoughts about color and color concept?
I don't really consider myself an expert at color. I just know I like to mess around with it. So what I'll do is a lot of times what I try to do with color is go into that once I have that dark and light pattern. Like in that last painting, you had all the dark shadow sides of the houses and then the roof in the sky and everything of those were light. Once I have that pattern down, then I can start to go in and play with the color. And one thing I like to do with color is think about what kind of value it has. So if I'm going to introduce like I have some crazy colors here. I use like cobalt teal and
there's some teal,
yeah. And I did the same thing on this. And this, you know, just like, all right, I have this pattern. I have the shadow side of her dress, the shadow side of her face, the background can be whatever. And then I'll just start plugging color in. And what I did with this too is a lot of times I'll try to weave the surface together, like her looking at the painting, the left shoulder kind of disappears into the background. Shape, you get this kind of passage of, you know, you're on her dress and her shoulder and all of a sudden you're in the background. You know, that dark shape coming down the right-hand side turns into the shadow side of her dress. It's the same color, so your eye kind of ties it together. so my concept of color is I just kind of try whatever works. I kind of get into some habits with using certain colors in the dark areas, but I've pushed that too. I've done paintings where I've had all the dark areas be really warm colors. In other words, the dark areas of the pattern and the lights be cool colors.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
and within that spectrum, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, I always mess this up.
Yeah.
There. So this is what I loved about this piece is it's so much bigger than you expect. Remember when you came in, I was so tickled with her. I was like,
yeah.
oh my God. Even though you know dimensions, you're like,
yeah.
oh my God, I love her. Like she's
yeah.
so, I mean, it's even more stunning in person. That's why I really feel like people need to come out and see this show because it is, there she is in the window. And the other thing I love about this is it's almost a vintage feel, but yet you updated it with the cool colors. And I think aesthetically, I'm all about that, like updating vintage. How I live, I always put, antiques, but yet I have really cool art, that's contemporary. So, I mean, this sings to me. I just love her.
Thank you. Yeah, that's that kind of oldness too. I like that too. I don't know. Some of the photos, like that's a photo of my mom that I used for that when she was a little girl.
That's so fun because it reminds me of a picture of my mother in Southwest Philly in her white dress, and then everybody's on the stoop in the background. Like it's so funny that you said that's your mother.
And there's a way things look like I'm the youngest of 7. So my mom passed away in 2014, but she was 80 years old when she passed away. So I was the youngest and I'm 49. So I have all these old photos and like tin type photos from her family from like the 20s and 30s and even before that. And so I don't use all of them because you can't, but this one I kind of, like I said, I used this one probably was a couple different things put together. A lot of times I like to take I'll take the head from this one and the body from this one, kind of it's the same person, put it together. And I think that's a concept too with painting that I like is that you can have this kind of malleability of space and time and things like that.
Yeah.
Different things across. Someone asked me a question. You could have like a picture of like a grandmother and her granddaughter at the same age, or a great grandmother and a great grandson at the same age in the same painting.
That's a great idea.
And so that's how I like to think of it as just kind of a free for all of color, drawing, and time and space. It can all be put together or not put together, you can put in a little bit of this or a whole bunch of that, and that's where you come up with, and just letting that stuff flow and not worrying about, is this a traditional painting or what style? Right. Just making something. That's what Beth, nostalgia.
Nostalgia, that's so true. I love her Peter Pan collar. I think they call it Peter Pan collar. I mean,
she has a little bow in her hair. And that's my grandmother. So that was my grandmother when she was probably like in her 30s or 40s.
Oh, wow.
But that actually came from a larger piece. There are more people in the picture, but I kind of honed it down. There's something just odd about it. And I really liked, originally it didn't have all that red, but then I was like, I'm going to introduce something here just to see what happens if I take really bright color and just start putting it on. What will it look like? And because I had painted this before, I had painted something similar to this before and painted over it completely. So I'm like, well, if I did it once, I can get back to it again. And there's always that element of, you can never, at least I can't do anything exactly the same way twice in a row. So there's always that element of, even if I tried to paint this painting again exactly the same way, it would look different. I wouldn't mix the exact colors. The drawing would be slightly different. There'd probably be other things I would want to change about it. There's another painting under this one. I think on the pretty much the upper left-hand corner of this is that's a complete different underpainting that you're seeing.
Oh my gosh.
And there's an element of layering of space. There's an element of layering of space where I have a painting back here and a painting on top of it, but they start to kind of read together that I like. And I know other people that do that, but I like how it influences the painting on top. I think it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, as a novice, you would think, if I'm painting over a painting, I have to paint over the whole painting.
Right.
But
Right.
you're
But you don't. Yeah, you don't have to, and you get a lot of cool results, like interesting results if you don't do that. You know, and a lot of times if I am painting and I start to paint over a painting and I cover it too much, I'm like, and then I ruined it, because I'm like, part of the charm of it in the mystery of it, I guess, is leaving that other kind of phantom image going in the background. I just like that idea, you know.
I love it. I love it. Now, do we have Boy on the Beach? Is that I want to talk
that's painted over. That's actually like the third iteration of a painting of my son. And you know, part of what I didn't want to do was kind of have this kind of I don't know, when you think of beach paintings, for the most part, like there's kind of like this sentimentality to it, that's over sentimentality to it, like kids playing on the beach, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to have that, but this, you know, originally I had, and you can see like right above his back to the left, there's a rock, kind of a rock formation. That's actually part of the old painting, as is this, everything that's not blue right to the right and left extreme of his head that's yellow or orangish yellow on the outside. That's all from the old painting. That's all the rocks to the right of his shoulders showing that were his head, like he's looking down at all those things that look like rocks. That's all the old painting. I originally had him in different positions, smaller, and then I just thought I wanted to have it be about him on the beach, you know, and it was like he really likes that, and he's, you know, it's my son. He's really adventurous, and he just really is into that, you know. Yeah. And he just
it's so funny, because before I even look at the title, you know, I'm fooling around with it, and I thought, oh my God, this looks like he's on the beach. And then I'm doing titles. I'm like, I was right. Like, even though it could be anything, but it feels like a Boy on the Beach. So, because I thought
I didn't really finish his arm, you know, and his face isn't really there. I think I put his ear in a little bit to, but I kind of like this idea of, you know, when you remember somebody's face, you don't see a mugshot of them. You might see the way their eye looks a certain way, the way their mouth kind of moves when they're talking, or the side of their cheek. You remember like little pieces of things when you remember the way their hair is, you know, or the way they, you know, kind of the perfume they wore, or whatever, you know, you remember stuff like that. And so when I think of my sun ring, I see the light and the light glinting, and just these kind of glimpses of things. And I like to try to leave that kind of, really kind of, time is moving. It's really not lasting. And so it's really ephemeral. And so everything just kind of moves, and things move through space, and then that time is gone. But to try to capture that in painting. And so I do that I try to do that with lost edges and things like that, you know, where it's like, you really can't pin it down. It's like a dream where you see something out of the corner. You're like, there's somebody was standing there, but I can't tell who it was, but I knew it was like Uncle Jim, or, you know what I mean? Like, you get a feeling. And so that's getting that idea of getting a feeling and a fleeting look at something is what
and that's why I think some people remind me of other people, because I'm like, there is something like in transit, there's something that reminds you, and it could be a shape of the ear or hair or something. I get that.
Some mannerism. Yeah.
So that is beautiful. So you are very admired. Is there any artist that you admire?
Yes, I do. Martin Campos is one of my favorites. You know, he's a guy here. Yeah, and he's just, I don't know. I actually own a lot of Martin's work, and he's just, not only is he a really good artist, he's a really nice guy. So
I agree.
And I just really enjoy his work. He's such an excellent draftsman, and he's just so free. There's like almost like a palpable feeling of creative freedom that comes off of his work. It's like somebody like shaking you by the shoulders, you know, and it's very exciting to me that way. Like he's just trying whatever comes to him, and he's just letting it all out, and I just love that. Another person I really like that I've seen a lot. I actually ordered the book for her show is Zoe Frank. She's really good.
Okay.
Does that too. A lot of that idea of layering and things being transparent in certain areas she's really all about that and doing that very well. And actually another one, artist I like is Peggy Roberts, Peggy Kroll Roberts. She does amazing. She just lets loose. I mean, she's one of the most creative artists that I know of, you know.
Yeah.
There's a bunch though. There's a bunch of people
Yeah.
that I like.
Well,
I mean,
that's how I feel. I'm in the business. Denise Adore, who's part of our Gallery 222 family, she's like, I love Martin's in his way.
Yeah. He's a great guy. He's a wonderful guy. I love him.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm so glad we had an opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you.
So much fun. And I know, definitely. I cannot thank you enough for adoring our walls with your work. I just think it looks amazing. So everybody needs to come out and look and see. But thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Check in later. So I just
Appreciate
want to remind everybody, May 29th is the last day. It flies. I'm telling you, this spring has flown. I think because everything's opening up, there's so much to do. People are more social. Don't forget to visit Gallery 222 in person. It's our hours are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 to 5, and we're online all day, all the time. So it's gallery222malvern.com. We got our virtual table talks coming up next Wednesday. I'm going to be sitting with Wendy Prather-Burrell. She can talk about her sold out show. And then Alicia Acelta, she has amazing work in our third gallery. So please tune in and stop by and say hello. So thank you to Patrick and everyone else for tuning in.